Hello, people of YouTube. My name is Steve Gray, and today we are going to be talking about the Floyd Rose tremolo system on a bunch of different guitars. More specifically, my guitar. Ooh, my guitar. What is it? Those are aftermarket pickups. Yes, they are. So, what is this guitar? We'll just start with that first. This guitar that I have right here is a PV Predator Plus EXP guitar, and the one pot crapped out. So the tone pot is a CTS 500 pot, and the pickups are Seymour Duncan Jazz and a Jazz in the neck and a JB in the bridge set. Um, so what to know about Floyd Roses? Let's start with all of the fancy pros. So, pros. You can do all the crazy shit that Van Halen does. Yeah, I know that's what 90% of you are here for. Because everyone heard Eruption and those crazy. I can't really do them because I'm not plugged into an amp right now. But yeah, dive bombs. Good old dive bombs, though. All sorts of crazy different harmonic things you can do with a tremolo that goes both up and down. That's why it's called the floating row. The floating tremolo. Floyd Rose floating tremolo. So let's see other positives. Once you get it in tune, the guitar is in tune, and you got the locking keys up here. As you can see, once those are nice and locked into place, your guitar is really not going to go out of tune. I'm just going to grab a pick here. This guitar has been sitting for probably 3 weeks. I have other guitars. I haven't played this one. And yeah, still pretty much perfectly in tune. Maybe needs a little adjusting, but it's definitely playable after me not touching it for a few weeks. What are other positives to Floyd Rose? It's just fun to play with. It really is. It's fun to play with. You can get more tones out of it. You get the Eddie Van Halen tones. You know, you get whoever. I'm trying to think of other guitarists that have used Floyd Roses in the past. Slash does for a couple of songs. I know he's mostly a hardtail guy, but he actually does have a couple of Floyd Rose Les Pauls lying around. But yeah, I mean, they're cool. They're cool. They're fun to play with. But is it something? If you only have one guitar, should you just only have that one Floyd Rose? Multiple Floyd Roses? Should you do a hardtail? Should you do string through the body? Bunch of different options that you got to do. For this particular model, tuning it and stringing it. Stringing it isn't really that bad. So even if you have a ball end string, what you do here is, I'm actually going to take the strap off for a second. This section of the guitar, these little saddles, so these are the adjustment pieces right here, which hold in the strings. These, I believe, are a little, I think they're graphite blocks. I could be wrong. It might be a different metal on this particular guitar. Excuse me. But basically what you do is you loosen these screws up, you cut the ball end of the string off, or you cut the ball end of the string off. You shove one of the two ends down there. It doesn't matter which end, and then you tighten this up. And this block basically pushes the screw up against another piece of metal that's in this thing, and your string is nice and tight and not going to come out of there. Then after you do that, up top, all of these locking nut keys come off with an Allen wrench. In order to string your guitar, you have to take all 3 of these, or 4, depending if you have a 7 or 8 string guitar, off, and then you would just wrap around the tuners as you normally would. So now that all of that is off, how to basically put it in tune. So these guys down here, fine tuning keys. Yep. Basically what you're going to want to do is, at first you're just going to want to screw all of them about directly into the middle to get it started. And you basically, as I said, you screw these down, each into one of these right about in the middle, so that way you got playability up and down when you go to fine tune it. So then after you got all that done, nice and stringed up, these are all in the middle, then you actually tune it up top. Tune it up top, make sure it's in tune. I actually recommend tuning a little bit flat or a little bit sharp, depending on your guitar. Technically, you don't have to do that, but because the main reason you're doing that is because every time you're tuning a string, because of the 3 strings, There's 3 springs or 2 or 3 springs back here underneath the back plate that attach the block to another piece, similar to the Fender tremolo system. But because this is floating, and it's a 2-point system, most of the 2-point systems do this. You're going to tune the entire guitar, you're going to play a chord, and then you're going to be out of tune. What I do, I call it the easy way. And some people do this. Some people prefer to do it a different way. Basically, I tune it, I get it roughly in tune, see how far sharp or flat I am, and then I take off the back plate and there's 2 screws, and I adjust the screws accordingly to get it in tune correctly. Also, as I said, there's another. The more correct way to do it is tune each string down, basically like a half step or something. Probably not even a half step, maybe like a quarter step, like slightly flat to each string. And then basically just playing by ear and using the tuning keys to play it, because obviously you're going to want to adjust the springs where you feel comfortable with the springs, so the strings don't break when you're friggin' slamming on this guy as hard as you possibly can. So once that is all finally beautifully in tune, and you got whatever tuning you want, keep in mind you're primarily going to be in one tuning, unless you have that little doodad that Eddie Van Halen has attached to his that most Floyd Roses don't, where you pull it out and then boom, it's like drop D. And a standard one, this one I believe is currently in E flat standard tuning. Any Green Day fans out there? Guns N' Roses, yep, playing Guns N' Roses on a Strat. I know you all hate me. But yeah, so once you get it in tuning, you lock this guy down, and you're pretty much good to go. You're not going to be dealing with basically going out of tune ever again. You're going to be in tune, you're going to pick it up, and you're going to be fine. So, I mean, that it is a process. Just tuning it, learning how to do it is a process. The main issue is why people hate Floyd Roses so much, such as this guitar. This is a cheap off-brand, it's a licensed Floyd Rose. It's not even like a Floyd Rose special or anything built by Floyd Rose in a different place besides Germany. I think, what did they build in Korea? I want to say it's Korea. Basically, they gave the patent or whatever to design it to different companies. PV has their own one. I think Ibanez is their own specific tremolo. But you'll see different companies where basically it says licensed by Floyd Rose. It's basically not a real Floyd. It's like a Floyd Rose, but it's not a real one. And the major issues with these ones is they are cheaply made, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, if you set them up right, they're usually good to go. But they are more cheaply made, unfortunately. The blocks are cheaper material, basically all the cheap materials. The screws, you have to be careful. I over-tighten, because you will get occasional buzzing and have to retighten these screws. At least that's what I find in this particular Floyd Rose. I actually ended up breaking one of the screws that goes into the saddle and ended up having to buy an entire new saddle assembly. And because you can't really find the cheap Floyd Rose parts, I had to spend $14 on a saddle. And if you can see, the one screw on the bottom is actually longer than all the other ones. But that wasn't really a massively big deal. And it wasn't like a detrimental failure, like one of the posts or something popped out. The whammy bar, most of them is like a little screw in. Just screws in there. And that's pretty good to go. And you can upgrade this stuff too. These screws, I've noticed, I've played like a German-made Floyd Rose before. The screws don't really go all the way down in the models. There's actually you can replace all the screws if you'd like in the cheaper models, but the problem is you get to a point where you're replacing all the parts, and then basically you have an actual Floyd Rose, or I should say made in Germany Floyd Rose, and you're probably better off just buying one of those anyway. But the main reason people hate them is because you start off with this cheapy one that's a little finicky, and you got to play with it all the time, like I do with this one, and basically you learn to hate them. You do. You really learn to hate them because they're not built at the same quality as the more expensive ones. And the problem is, the more expensive ones, just buying that stupid bridge is like $250. And this guitar, new, I'm guessing, was probably $150. So you see the dilemma of that particular issue, which kind of sucks because it draws a lot of people away from Floyd Roses. Another thing is tuning. Obviously, you're going to be stuck on one tuning. You're not going to be able to really do other tunings without taking 20 minutes to fiddle with the guitar. String breakage. If you're going too hard on the whammy bar, you are going to break a string. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's something like if you should have like one or two guitars. Like if you want to buy if you're collecting guitars like I do, I just a lot of guitar guys just keep having more and more guitars. You just basically want at least one guitar that has a Floyd Rose on it or something. But other than that, it's a fun trick. You don't mess with it. I like it. The main reason I like it is just because even if I don't use the actual Floyd Rose part, most of the stuff I'm playing is in standard or E flat anyway. And when I just pick it up and I don't have to tune the guitar, I freaking love that. Other downsides to a Floyd Rose. Oh yeah, anything breaks obviously expensive to replace it. I pretty much covered all that. The blocks, you can actually go on different websites, get all brass blocks if you prefer. I don't know what the heck this one is made out of. I don't really care. To me, it sounds good. Buzzing issues. If your screws are too tight or aren't tight enough, you're going to get buzzing issues either up top on the bottom. I had that issue with the one string, my G string, which is why I kept tightening that piece of metal ended up breaking the metal. So don't over tighten your screws, even if there's a little bit of buzzing. You're just gonna have to deal with it, or you can go online and maybe spend $80 to get a Floyd Rhodes special. And I've heard the specials are actually pretty good. They're not great, but they're definitely better than something that'll come stock with a guitar. Band purposes, if you need a bunch of different tunings, just bring another guitar with you. Because maybe you're using this for Eruption or something, but then the next song is in drop D, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have the drop D pull thing, whatever it's called. It is. It's just I don't know, man. Some people, as I said, the main reason people hate Floyd Roses are just because they get a cheap, shitty one when they're young. Like when you're 15, you're like, oh, that thing looks cool. I can go wow, 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 do wow, 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 freaking dive bombs and shit. But no. As I said, there are different Floyd Rose systems. There's actually one now that works for Les Pauls, and you don't have to route anything. I think you might have to do something with a nut, but other than that, yeah. They said parts break. Parts are gonna break. Oh yeah, also to adjust everything. Where am I? Hold on. Hold on. Yeah. Here we go. I keep these in a baggie at all times, and I bring those with you everywhere. Because if you ever have to adjust something, there's I think how many? One, two. I believe with this particular model, I'm not sure how it is with regular the German-made Floyd Roses or this Floyd Rose specials. But this particular model, you have to have two Allen wrenches. There's two different types of screws for it. The saddle adjustment, the tiny ones, is a different type of one than pretty much all the other screws. The other ones are all standard one. Saddle screws you don't have to adjust really too much unless you need to intonate your guitar. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on a Floyd Rose. Maybe you want to buy one, maybe you don't. If you got any questions, leave it down in the comments below. I'll try to answer them as fast as I can. My name's Steve Gray. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you actually get notified when I'm making videos. That would be awesome. Thanks. Have a good one.